This conference will now be recorded.
In last session, we were discussing about what is VPC, what are the components of VPC like subnets, IGW, route table, all those things. In today's session, we'll try to create a VPC. We'll go for a lab setup. So VPC is a regional level service in AWS. So in AWS account, right, you have a regions. You have a various regions. Let's say this is my AWS account. In this, AWS has a lot of regions, right? We already discussed. As of now, I am planning to create my required infrastructure in Mumbai region. So this is my Mumbai region. In AWS terminology, it is AP South 1, that is Mumbai. So VPC is a regional level service. We already discussed, right? By default, there will be one VPC, that is default VPC, and there is a limit, the default limit. How many VPCs can be created in one region? By default, we already discussed when we discussed about service limits. So how many AWS VPCs can be created in one region? By default, that is 5. 5 AWS VPCs can be created in one region by default. That is a soft limit. That is a soft limit. If required, you can create a more VPCs by extending that soft quota, service quota. So when we are creating a VPC, we need to give the network range, the VPC range in the form of CIDR. In the form of CIDR, classless interdomain routing. It's a method for allocating IP addresses and it's routing for a private networks. So you need to select any one of the IPs in this RFC 1918 ranges. Within this you can take, or within this you can take, or in this range you can take. We already discussed the CIDR RFC 1918. For now, I'm taking something like this 10.0.0.0/24. This is network bits. If required, you need more host, more IPs, you can take something like this also. Something like this also. If I take this much, right, this is the network bits, 16 bits I'm giving for network, remaining for host. You will get these many IPs. 2 power 32 minus 16. You are leaving 16 bits for network, remaining 16 bit for host. So 2 power 16, 65,536. Suppose if I give like this, 2 power 32 minus n, you are giving 24 bits for network, remaining for host. So 2 power 32 minus 24, 2 power 8. So how many IPs, host IPs we will be getting for that network? 256. Based on your requirement, you can give the network range, the CIDR range for that network in RFC 1918 ranges, right? You can take like this, or maybe like this, or maybe, as I already told, what is the allowed value here? What is the allowed value here in AWS VPC while creating? So it is 16 to 28. Only within this range you can give the network bits. So if I give 28 only, 16 IPs I will get. I am giving 24 so that I'll get 256 IPs for the host. If required, you can give like this also. So let me plan something like this. I am going to create one VPC just to give an example. Something like this I am giving. In real time, you will give your project name, your use case name, your environment name, for which environment, for what application you are using. Like that you will give. For now, I am just giving a demo VPC. the CIDR in this range. So 256 IPs I'll get for that network. But within that VPC, you need to create a subnetworks. So subnetworks, you need to break that network. You need to break that network into a small network, that is subnet. So subnet is basically subsection of the network. Okay. When we create a VPC, it spans across all the availability zones in that region. VPC is a regional level service. You can add one or more subnets in each availability zone. We can add one or more subnets in each availability zone, but the entire subnet, that each subnet must reside entirely within one availability zone. You can't create a subnetwork that spans into multiple zones. Subnet will be created entirely within one availability zone, each subnet. But you can add one or more subnets in multiple availability zones, each availability zone. So you can have n number of subnets up to 200 also, but primarily there are two types of subnets based on the routes, based on the network routes. So let me show that. I am trying to show you some diagram, architectural diagram, VPC diagram. Based on that, I will, so that you can understand. So I have some availability zones in that region. So we have availability zones in this region, right? So I am planning something like this for this VPC. AP South 1A. This is one availability zone in that region. This is another availability zone in that region. For now, I am just planning my subnets in these two availability zones. I am planning to create some subnets just for demonstration purpose. I am planning something like this. I am going to create total 4 subnets. Total 4 subnets. In each availability zone, two subnets. In each availability zone, I am planning two subnets. But if required, you can create as per your requirement. As per your requirement, you can create more subnets also. I am planning something like this. While creating a subnet also, you need to give the CIDR, the subnet CIDR. This is my VPC CIDR. This is my VPC CIDR. While creating a subnet also, I need to give the CIDR. The subnet CIDR should be subset of your VPC CIDR. So I have total 256 IPs. I can plan some subnets, maybe 64 IPs for this subnet, 64 IPs for this subnet, 64 IPs for this subnet, like that. So while creating a subnet also, I need to give the CIDR. As per my requirement, I can break that VPC CIDR into subnet CIDR, small ranges again. So if required, you can use some kind of a subnet calculators, guys. If required, you can use some kind of a subnet calculators to break that this VPC range, into small ranges. If required, you can use some subnet calculators also, like this. So this is my VPC CIDR. This I am breaking into 64 IPs for one subnet, like this. This range for one subnet, this range for another subnet, this range for one more subnet, this range for one more subnet, like that. I am planning to break. So let me create a subnets. As per this, I'll create a subnets also. First, let me go to VPC. First, I'll create a VPC first. I'm manually creating a VPC. When you go to VPC, you see only one VPC, guys. When you go to your VPC, you see only one VPC, that is default VPC. But in my account, I already created some VPCs for some other requirements. So I'm explaining some other concepts for a normal DevOps batch. So I'm explaining EKS. For creating a EKS cluster, I created one VPC. For another requirement, I created one more VPC. But when you go to your account, you see only one VPC, that is default VPC. For now, let me create one custom VPC. I am giving VPC name as something demo VPC. But in real time, you will give your project name or use case name. Okay. Now I am going to give this range, my VPC range, something like this. Total 256 IPs I will be getting. So this is my VPC range in the form of CIDR. In the form of CIDR, I am creating a VPC. I got a VPC. Now within that VPC, I'll create a subnets. Within that VPC, I'll create a subnets. Some 4 subnets I'll create. 4 subnets I'll create. For each subnet again, I need to give some range, VPC, that network range. So the subnet CIDR should be subset of your VPC CIDR. So I break this VPC into 4 ranges again to create a 4 different subnets. So this range for one subnet, this range for another subnet, this range for another subnet, like that. So let me create a subnets under that VPC. I have a VPC now, this demo VPC. This is the CIDR for that VPC. Now let me go to subnets. There are lot of subnets, but this is for other VPCs. This is for other VPC. For this VPC, AWS has given one ID, VPC ID also. When we created a VPC, one ID is assigned for this VPC. If you go to subnets, for this VPC, I am filtering with that VPC ID. For that VPC, we don't have any subnets, subnetworks. We have a subnets, but various, this is for other VPCs. So let me create a subnets for that VPC. Create subnet. I want to create a subnet for this VPC, this demo VPC. This is the VPC CIDR. This is the VPC CIDR. The subnet CIDR should be subset of this VPC CIDR. The subnet CIDR should be subset of this VPC CIDR. I can't give outside of this range, but if I give completely this /24, all the IPs you are allocating for only one subnet. This is your VPC CIDR. If you are giving like this, all the IPs you are allocating for only one subnet. Will you able to create few more subnets if you are completely allocating all those 256 IPs into single subnet only? No. So that's why I am planning something like this. So 4 subnets I want to create. I break that VPC into 4 ranges. First 64 for one subnet, another 64 another subnet, another 64 one more subnet, another 64 one more subnet, like that I am planning. So let me create a subnets. I am just giving a name. I am just giving a name as a public subnet, but this won't become public subnet. This won't become public subnet unless until you add a route, IGW route to this. It won't become a public subnet. I am just giving name as public subnet. So the subnet has to be created. The subnet has to be created in some availability zone. This subnet I am planning in 1 day availability zone, and I am allocating some range like this. This is as per your requirement again. So first 64, this subnet. Similarly, let me create multiple subnets at a time. I am creating one more subnet. I am just giving name as demo VPC private subnet, like that. Private subnet 1A, like that. In 1A availability zone, I will take other range because first 64 I have allocated for previous subnet. I am going to allocate another 64 for this subnet. Similarly, let me create 2 more subnets. Just I'm giving name as public like that, but this won't become public subnet. So let me create public subnet in another availability zone, 1B availability zone, this range, another. You should not have any white spaces and the end at the beginning also. Let's make sure you don't have any white spaces. Let me add one more subnet, private subnet 1B. Again in 1B availability zone, whatever the last 64 I have, I am giving for this range. So with this, I am creating a subnets also. With this, I created total 4 subnets. Now this VPC, this VPC, this VPC, this is the ID of that VPC. That VPC has some subnets. I can filter here in the subnets based on the VPC ID. Now you can see there are 4 subnets created. There are 4 subnets created for that VPC. If you see, even though I have allocated 64 IPs for each subnet, the CIDR, you can see actually available is 59. As I already told, in each subnet, 5 IPs will be reserved by AWS. First 4 IP in that subnet range and last IP will be reserved by AWS. Now I have a subnets, and also you can make some preferences in the VPC level. Suppose whenever you are creating EC2 instance, you need some kind of a public DNS name, that public host name, right? When you guys are creating some servers, right, you are getting some kind of a host name for your EC2. Whenever you are creating servers, right, you are getting some kind of a host name here for that EC2. If you similarly need those type of host name, if you similarly need this type of host names, right, this host name you can see, right, this type of host name, if you need, you can make some preferences, this kind of a host name for your EC2 instances, public DNS host name, private DNS host name. If you need these type of host names for whatever servers you are creating in that VPC, you need to make some preferences, you need to make some changes to that VPC. Let me show that. Now in this VPC, select that VPC, go to actions, edit VPC settings. You have one option here, enable DNS host name. You need to select this one so that your EC2 instances will get the host name, kind of a DNS host names. That is at the VPC level. Guys, if you want to create a VPC using Terraform also, you can write the code, right? Resource AWS underscore VPC, and you are going to provide the CIDR. What is the CIDR for that VPC? Using Terraform, you can create the VPC. That I will explain later. First, I am explaining what is VPC, what are the components of VPC, and how to create and manage the VPC manually. We are discussing. Now we created a VPC. We have a subnets, and for subnets also, at subnet level also you can make some kind of a preferences. Suppose whenever you are creating the servers in some subnet and you want a public IP for those EC2 instances by default, again at the subnet level you can make some preferences. So you are planning to make this as a public subnet, and whenever you are creating any EC2 instances in this subnet, automatically you need to assign a public IP. Then in this subnet level also you can make some preferences. Select this subnet, edit subnet settings, Here you have something called auto assign public IP. You can select this option. So whenever you are creating any EC2 instance in this subnet, automatically public IP will be assigned for that EC2. Similarly, you are planning one more public subnet in another availability zone. Here also you can make those changes. auto assign public IP. I am enabling for those two subnets. Now I created a VPC. I created a VPC. I created a subnets. I created a subnets. 4 subnets I created, and automatically one main route table will be created for that VPC also, guys. If you see, for this demo VPC, also there is one route table, that is main route table. One route table will be created for that VPC. Automatically, when you create a VPC, this main route table is created already for this demo VPC. If you see, there is already one route. If this is the destination, suppose you are creating a servers in this VPC. Let's imagine you are going to create a servers in this VPC. This server will have an IP address. This server will have an IP address in that range only. Something like this 10.0.0, maybe something like this. Maybe you have a one more server, maybe here or here, that doesn't matter. Let's say here you have one more server, that is, you have some servers like this, right? Some servers like this. Now, if this server, just to give an example, if this server is trying to contact this server, if this server is trying to reach this server, if this server basically is trying to reach this server, this server is trying to reach this server, or this server is trying to reach this server, just to give an example. So if this server is trying to reach this server will become a destination. If this server is trying to contact this server will become destination. So if the destination IPs are in this range, the destination IPs are in this range, in that network range, target is local, which means without IGW, without internet gateway and without that IGW route, thus these instances can communicate with each other. The EC2 instances, which is part of this network, which is part of this VPC, will they able to communicate with each other without internet, without public IPs also, because of this route? Because of this route, the default route, yes. And since this is a default route table, these subnets, all these 4 subnets are not used in any other route table, because we have not created any other route table. We have not created any other route table except this default route table, main route table. Except this main route table, we don't have any other route table for that VPC, and we have not added these subnets in other route table. So all these subnets have been explicitly, all these subnets have not been explicitly associated with any route table, hence it is associated with main route table. Since these subnets are not been explicitly associated with any other route table, therefore these subnets are associated with main route table. So is this subnet, this subnet, this subnet, this subnet is associated with the main route table? Yes, because we don't have any other route table, and there is a local route. So all these instances can communicate with each other without IGW, without internet gateway. But now, even though I create a server, I am just giving name as public subnet. Even though I created some EC2 instances here, do you think these servers are reachable or routable from the internet? No. What needs to be done? What needs to be done? Even though you are going to create a servers in this subnet, names are public subnet, but these are not public subnet as of now. So what do you need to do? Basically, you need to create a IGW. You need to create a IGW, and you need to define the route. You need to define the route. You need to define the route for that IGW, and you need to associate the subnets with that route table. So let me create IGW. Let me create IGW. As of now, we don't have any IGW. Let me create IGW, Internet Gateway. Internet Gateway. So you have some IGW, but these are for different VPCs, other VPCs. As I already told, how many IGWs can be attached to one VPC, or one VPC can have how many IGWs, as I already told? Only one IGW. So these IGWs are attached for other VPCs. So let me create new IGW. I'm just giving demo VPC IGW. Let me create an internet gateway. Now we created an internet gateway. We created an internet gateway, but this is not attached as of now. This is in detached state. So let me attach to this IGW. Let me attach this IGW to VPC. I am attaching. Now I got IGW. I got IGW, internet gateway. I created one internet gateway. I created one internet gateway, and I attached that internet gateway to this VPC. Now, but still, is our job is done? Is these subnets, is these two subnets become public subnet if you just create IGW and attach to our VPC? No. What needs to be done? You need to define the route. We need to add the route. Now, already there is one main route table. Already there is one main route table for that VPC. If I add that IGW route to this main route table, if I add that IGW route to this main route table, the main route table which is created for that VPC, what will happen, guys? Is all these subnets become public subnets? Whatever, because these route table, these subnets are not used with any other route table, hence these are associated with main route table only. If I add a IGW route here, is all four subnets become public subnet? If I add IGW route here, yes, because these subnets are not used with any other route table, hence these are associated with main route table. So if I add a route, if I add a IGW route here in the main route table, all these four subnets become public subnets, because these subnets are not used with any other route table, hence it is associated with main route table only. So if I add a route here, all the subnets become public subnets. That is how it is there for default VPC also. So I don't want to add that IGW route here. I don't want to add the IGW route here. So what I will do, I will create another route table. I'll create another route table, my own route table. So let me create some route table, demo VPC, something like this I'm giving. I'm creating one route table in this VPC, in the demo VPC. Now in this route table, demo VPC, public route, like that I have given. In this route table, I will add the routes. I'll add the route, that IGW route. Let me go to this demo VPC public route table. Let me go to the routes. Let me add the routes. Now, if the destination is 0.0.0, other than this destination, other than this network range, if this is the destination, I will say target is IGW, internet gateway, internet gateway. But this is not the main route table. This is not the main route table. Subnets will not be associated with this route table. So I need to explicitly select the subnets, because this is not the main route table. So let me select, I am selecting only these two. I am selecting only these two, which I want to make public. These two subnets I am selecting. So there is a route table. There is a route table where there is a route to the IGW. If any IP other than this range, target is internet, and these two subnets explicitly have associated to make public. Now, is these two subnets become public after adding one route table? After creating one route table, there is one route table. So here, for this route table, just to give an example, I have given something like this. This is kind of a route table. So here, what I have done, I have added the route 0.0.0.0. If this is the destination, target is IGW, and I associated this route table with this subnet, these two subnets. I associated these two subnets with this route table, and there is a route to the IGW. Now, the servers in this subnet, will it have access to the internet because there is a route and these subnets are associated? Yes. And also, can we reach these servers from internet also, from different network, whatever servers I create in this subnet and this subnet? Yes. So this is how you can plan your VPC. This is how you can plan your VPC if required. I just demonstrated with the 2 availability zones, 4 subnets. If required, can you plan like this also? Maybe in one more availability zone, if you have a IPs, can you plan something like this also? Maybe multiple private subnets like this and one public subnet like this also, as per your requirement. Yes, I just demonstrated with only 2 availability zones, 4 subnets. Is everyone clear what is VPC, how to create a VPC, what do you mean by IGW, what do you mean by route table, public subnet, private subnet? Now let me create some servers. To understand. Let me create some server in one public subnet. Let me create some server in public subnet. I am creating one server here. This is like a public server. Now the servers from internet, can we reach this server via IGW? Because there is a route to the internet, right? There is a route to the internet. Can I reach this server from different network, from internet? Yes. But let me do one more thing. If I create a servers in this subnet, can I reach these servers? No, because there is no route to the internet. Let me show that. Let me create a server, just some dummy server. Let me go to EC2 section. Let me create some server, launch instance. Just I am creating one server with this tag. I am selecting Red Hat AMI. I am selecting t2.micro as instance type. As for your requirement, you can select whatever. This is the key pair for SSH. And network, if you guys don't select by default under which network your servers will be created, if you don't select explicitly, if you don't say in which network the servers are getting created, that EC2 instances. The default VPC. But in real time, are we going to create a servers in default VPC as we already discussed? No, because the default VPC has all the public subnets. In real time, you are not going to create a servers in public subnets. Most of our servers like web servers, that application servers basically, the application servers like Tomcat, JBoss, or if you guys are using EKS cluster, your EKS nodes, if you guys are using Docker, your Docker nodes, and if you guys are creating database servers, the database servers also in private subnet, or if you guys are using RDS, managed databases as a service, that RDS instances also you are going to create in a private subnets only. So you need to explicitly select. So let me select this VPC, demo VPC. For now, I am just creating one server in public subnet. I am just creating one server in public subnet. I am creating one server in this public subnet. That subnet is in this availability zone. So automatically public IP will be assigned because I have changed the preference. Now port 22 is also open for now. Let me launch the server. Let me create a server. Now I created one EC2 instance here. I created one EC2 instance here. It's kind of a public server with internet access and public IP. Now if you see this server, it is getting created. The server is getting created. Let's wait. The server is getting created. Let's wait for that to be in the state. Now if you see this server networking, it is in this VPC. I selected, I want that server in this VPC. So selected. So the server is created in this VPC under this subnet. This subnet has a route to the IGW in the route table. So the server has a private IP. If you see, is the private IP is allocated from the CIDR range for which I have given for that subnet. For this subnet, I have given some CIDR range. So is the private IP is within that range, whatever I have given for that subnetwork? Yes. And you can see public IP also. Now, this server, as of now, SSH is running. SSH is also one process. So from my local laptop, even though I am not part of the same private network, since it is a public server with internet access and public IP, from my local laptop, will I able to reach that server, whatever process which is running? In case if you have a SSH key, that PEM file, and if a security group, if the firewall is opened, you can SSH directly. I have a PEM file in my local laptop. The firewall port 22 is also open. Am I able to reach that server from my local laptop since it's a public server? Yes. Now, this server also has access to internet. If you see, is this server is able to contact Google server, which is not in that network but in a internet. You can see this is the Google IP. If you see, is that Google server IP? What type of IP it is? Is it a private IP, public IP? If you see this IP, by looking at IP, can you guys tell me? It's a public IP, which means is this server has access to the internet, and can I install some softwares directly from the internet repositories? That can be like M repositories, which is part of internet. I am installing some software like Git directly from internet, M repositories, M artifactories, which is part of internet. So which means is this server has access to the internet, and we also able to reach this server from internet since it's in a public subnet? Yes. Now let me create some other server. Let me create one more server in a private subnet. Let me create one more server in a private subnet. Let me create one more server in a private subnet. I'm just giving a tag. I'm just giving a tag as private server, but you can give anything like Jenkins server, Tomcat server, or database server, or Kubernetes server, whatever you want to give, you can give. I'm just giving name as private server. You can select whatever AMI as per your requirement, whatever instance type as per your requirement, key pair for SSH. Now I am going to select the demo VPC. Now let me make this in a private subnet. I am creating this server in one of the private subnet like this. Now this is kind of a private server. Now this server is in a private subnet. This server is in a private subnet. The server is in a private subnet. So there is no route. There is no route to the internet, that IGW. Now is this server, can I reach this server from internet, from different networks, from internet, this server, this private server, whatever I created just now? No, because it doesn't have any connectivity with other networks. It doesn't have any connectivity with other networks. If you see, this is one server, this is one server created in this VPC, created in this VPC, and in this subnet. This subnet don't have a route to the IGW. Now if I try to SSH from my local laptop, there is no public IP, there is no internet also. Will I able to reach this server from my local laptop, which is part of different network? I'm trying to SSH. Even though SSH process is running, port 22 is opened, but still I can't reach this one because this is a private IP. These private IPs are non-routable, non-reachable in the internet. Because my laptop is not part of the same private network. My laptop is not part of the same private network, so I can't reach the private IPs from different networks or internet. But you may have a doubt, sir, in real time you are saying most of the private servers are private servers, like how application developers or DevOps engineers, like the developers or DevOps engineers, or maybe testing team, or system administrator, network administrators, how they can SSH to these servers for doing some kind of a configuration or deployment or troubleshooting. They want to SSH, right, sir, these servers, how they can SSH? So your system also should have a private connection. Your system also should have a private connection. Then only you can directly SSH to this private server. If you guys observe, or not, if you guys are already working employees, if you go to office, right, your office connection, you connect to your office network, then you can access some applications, some servers. But same laptop, office laptop, if you come back to home and if you connect to your home internet, home network, are you guys able to access those applications, that private applications or private servers from your home network? No, unless until you have a private connectivity with that network where you have your servers. So how it will work in real time? There are various ways. Let's say this is your VPC, right? This is your VPC. You are a remote worker. Now everyone is remote workers only, work from home, right? So you are a remote worker. If remote workers has to connect to the applications or servers which is running privately, there is a concept called client server VPN. You have a VPN server. You can have a VPN server here, and your system, your remote workers can have a VPN client software. VPN client software. So client server VPN, your remote workers can also part of that network. If your VPN client is connected to this VPN server, it will establish the private private connection in the public internet. It will establish the private tunnel, private VPN tunnel in the internet. So even though it is in the internet, but it is a kind of a private connection. Data will be encrypted and sent. The network packets will be encrypted and sent in this VPN tunnel. So you can enable the private connectivity for your remote workers. Remote workers are not end users, okay? Remote workers are the guys like developers, DevOps guys, system administrators, who is working on that applications, those servers. For those remote workers, you can enable the private connection using VPN client and VPN server. This VPN client server you can enable so that they can talk to the servers privately. Most of the guys are working employees only. Are you guys are connecting to VPN first to access your servers or access your applications, private applications? Most of you guys are already working employees only. Almost everyone is a working employee who joined this class. You guys are using VPN to talk to the private servers. Suppose you are going to office, or your on-prem environment, your corporate data center. Let's say this is your data center, your on-prem data center, corporate data center, your corporate data center or office network. You go to office, right? Nowadays people started going to office. Nowadays people started going to office. If you go to office, you are not connecting to VPN. You are not connecting to VPN. But again, how come your office network becomes part of that network? So there is some other services offered by AWS. There is some other services offered by AWS. So there is something called virtual private gateway and customer gateway using site-to-site VPN. Using site-to-site VPN, there is something called virtual private gateway. You need to create a virtual private gateway. Virtual private gateway. Virtual private gateway. Virtual private gateway. You need to create one virtual private gateway. That is like one router. That is one router. Virtual private gateway. And you have a customer gateway. You have a customer gateway. So customer side there is a router. Customer side there is a router. There is a customer side there is a router. So this is like a customer gateway. Just to understand, this is like a customer gateway router at the network. There is a router at a data center network, right? Customer gateway. Customer gateway. This is a virtual private gateway from AWS. And you are going to fill these customer gateway details again here. You are going to create a customer gateway, but you are going to fill this customer gateway details with AWS. There is something called site-to-site VPN. Using this site-to-site VPN, you are going to enable the connectivity. So you are going to enable the connectivity between the customer gateway, that is a router, which is there in the data center network, and a virtual private gateway at the customer side. And again, in this route table, your office network range, your office also will have some range, some IP range. Just to give an example, let's say this is your office network range. This is your office network range. So you are going to again define in the route table, if this is the target destination, the target is this site-to-site VPN. This site-to-site VPN. So if you define like this, there is a virtual private gateway, there is a customer gateway, and you enabled the connection using site-to-site VPN. The moment you are in office network or your servers in your office network, your data center servers, on-prem servers, does these servers also will be able to talk to these servers, or these servers also will be able to talk to these servers privately? via this site-to-site VPN. Yes, yes. This is again via internet. This is again via internet, but there will be some kind of a network congestion, network latencies, because the site-to-site VPN also depends on the public internet only. In the peak hours, there is a congestion, network congestion. If you don't want that type of latency, network latency and congestions, there is one more service offered by AWS, that is direct connection. Direct connection, dedicated private network will be established between cloud, AWS Direct Connect. AWS Direct Connect. A dedicated cable, network cables will be connected between your data center and the cloud. So dedicated network cables will be created at a dedicated network, direct network will be connected between on-premise environment and cloud environment. So this is a high bandwidth network connectivity, so that the servers in your office network can communicate with this network. This is how in real time it will work. Remote workers can access these things via site to this client server VPN. Remote workers can access these private applications, private servers using client server VPN. Office, the employees who are working as part of office, that corporate network, your on-prem network, can communicate with these private servers using direct connection or site to this one, site to site VPN. This is how it works in the real time. Now, I am not demonstrating all these things. I am not demonstrating all these things, but still, if I want to SSH or access, I want to SSH, let's say, I want to SSH to this private server, I can use bastion host concept. I can use bastion host concept. I don't have any site to site VPN. I don't have any client server VPN. I don't have any direct connection. I can use bastion host concept. Bastion host in the sense for SSH purpose, only for SSH purpose. Now, can I SSH to this server? Can I SSH to this server? I can consider this as a jump box or bastion host. From here, can I SSH to the private servers again if required? From here, can I SSH to these private servers just for SSH purpose? I can use this server as a bastion host. I can use this server as a bastion host. For SSH purpose, I can use the public server as a bastion host. I can SSH from this server to this server, or from this server to this server, because is this server can communicate with this server, do they have a connection by default? Yes. But you may have a doubt, sir, how end users will access? For end users, they don't want to SSH, right? End users don't want to SSH. End users, what they will do? End users will just access the applications which is hosted in these private servers. End users will just access the applications which is hosted in these private servers. That can be your Kubernetes nodes, that can be Docker nodes, that can be normal Tomcat servers or JBoss servers, whatever it is, or normal web servers like Nginx or HTTPD, whatever it is. They'll just access the applications which is hosted in these servers. But how can I make those applications accessible to the end users from internet? Can I do some kind of a reverse proxy? Can I go with some service called ELB? Can I create a ELB in public subnet? Can I create a ELB in public subnet? And can I route the traffic to these private servers from this ELB? Yes. Since this ELB is created in a public subnet, does end users can reach that application? I mean to say, does end users can access that application via this reverse proxy, that load balancer? End users? Yes. That is how in real time it works. That is how in real time it works. Now, I am not able to SSH to this server. I am not able to SSH to this server because this is a private server. in a private subnet. In a private server, private subnet. I am part of internet. I don't have any client server VPN. I don't have any site to site VPN like that. I can't reach this one. But from this public server, I can SSH to that private server because they are part of same network. But I may need a PEM file. I may need a PEM file. If you see, I am executing SSH command from this public server. I am trying to reach this private server, and this server is in same network. This is the source. This source system is contacting this destination system. So do I have a route, local route? If the destination is in that range 10.0.0/24, the target is local, which means this server is contacting this server. There is a route connection to the local. But I am getting this permission denied public key because of the key pair. I don't have that PEM file here. Let me create a PEM file here manually, and I will get the PEM file content from my local laptop. I'll get the PEM file content from my local laptop. So let me go to desktop. Let me go to desktop where I have that PEM file. I am opening in Notepad. Don't make any changes. I'm just taking this content, paste, escape colon WQ. I have a PEM file in this Bastion, kind of a Bastion host. Now you know this permissions problem 400. Let me make 400 permissions that PEM file. Now from this system, I am trying to SSH to this system. Now am I able to reach this system from this system with the help of PEM file, and there is a network also? Yes, but this is a private server. Now do I have access to the internet? Do I have access to the internet from this server? I am trying to reach Google. This server, is it able to talk to this IP? Internally, this domain is resolving to this IP? No, because do I have a route to the internet? Do I have a route to the internet there? No, that's why. Now, if I try to install some softwares directly from internet package managers, sudo apt install. I'm trying to install some softwares from directly. Sorry, it is not apt. This is yum because it's a Red Hat machine. So I'm trying to install some software directly from internet package managers. Do you see? Is it working? No. There is no access to the, there is no route to the internet from this private server because this server is created. This server is created in this VPC, in this VPC, in this VPC, in this subnet. Is this subnet has a route to the IGW, that is internet, in the route tables? No. So that's why there is no internet. Now, in real time, most of our servers are private servers. Then if I want to install some softwares, or if I want to do some kind of a patches in that system, and I want to download those softwares or patches from internet, the repository, internet servers, I mean to say the servers which is there in a different network I want to access, then how can I do? How can I install? How can I reach internet from these private servers? Or how can I install required softwares? There is something called NAT. There is something called NAT gateway. With the help of NAT gateway, with the help of NAT gateway, you can enable the internet connection to the private subnet, but only one direction. But only one direction. But only one direction. You can enable the internet connection to the private servers via NAT gateway. Okay. Now, if you understand, we created some servers like this. and we created IGW, and we added a route to this route table, and this server is able to talk to the internet because of the IGW and because of the route. Now this is kind of a private subnet. This is kind of a private subnet, private server. These two can talk to each other. These two can talk to each other. The server here can communicate with this one. This one also can talk to this one. This one also can talk to this one, like this. Because of what route? Because of the local route. Because of the local route. But now this one want to talk to the internet. Is that possible? That is possible only with the help of NAT instance. You create a NAT gateway and you attach these private subnets with one route table. You create one more route table and attach this private subnet, and where you define the route to the NAT, then these private servers can talk to the internet via NAT only one way direction. One way direction. Let me show that. If you see, as of now it is not working because there is no access to the internet from this server. So let me create a NAT gateway, NAT instance. That is again VPC component only. Network address translator. Network address translator. It will enable your private servers to talk to the internet only one way direction. Your private servers talk to the NAT talk to the internet, and it will get the data. But is that server become public? Even though the server is able to talk to the internet via NAT, is that server become public? No. That is still private only. So let me go and create a NAT gateway. And again, NAT gateway has to be created in which subnet again? Because private server needs to talk to the NAT will talk to the internet. NAT has to be created in which subnets? The public subnets. The public subnet where it has access to the internet. So let me create a NAT. I am saying demo VPC NAT. I am selecting some public subnet in that VPC. I am selecting some public subnet in that VPC. Guys, if required, you can do something like this also. If required, you can do something like this also, which means you can create a one NAT gateway in for each availability zone. You can create one NAT gateway in this public subnet. You can create one more NAT gateway in another public subnet, and this subnet can be attached with the one route table where you can add a route to this NAT. This subnet, this private subnet can be attached to this NAT in another route table, so that there won't be any latencies when it is talking to the NAT, because in each availability zone you have a NAT for your private subnets. For now, I am just creating one NAT in one subnet, and both private subnets, even though they are in different availability zones, I am attaching to the same NAT for now. So let me create a NAT. I am creating one NAT gateway in this public subnet. Connection type is public. I want to talk to the internet via NAT. Create a NAT gateway. NAT gateway requires one elastic IP. If you have any elastic IP, select. Otherwise, click on this allocate elastic IP. It will create one elastic IP and it will use by that NAT gateway. Let me create a NAT gateway. Now NAT gateway is created. NAT gateway is getting created. It is in progress. This is in progress. This NAT gateway is in progress. But is our job is done? Does it mean our private servers will talk to the NAT if I just have a NAT gateway? No. Again, what needs to be done? Route to the NAT gateway. So let me go to route table. Let me go to route table. If required, I can add the route in the main route table itself. In the main route table of that VPC itself, I can add. Otherwise, let me create a new route table, kind of a private route. So demo VPC. private route, select this VPC, create a route table. In this route table, I will add the route to the NAT. If the destination is 0.0.0, target is NAT gateway. This NAT gateway. Target is NAT gateway. Now, I just added the route, but since this is not the main route table, I have to explicitly associate those private subnets here. Edit subnet associations. I'm explicitly selecting these two subnets here to attach that route table. The moment I do this, right, now there is a access to the internet via NAT. If required, you can see I'm just doing a ping again. Now this time is that private server is able to talk to the Google via NAT only. First it is contacting NAT is contacting the internet. Now you can see earlier there was a timeout to download softwares from this Artifactory. Earlier there was a timeout to contact this Artifactory. Now if you see, if I have a curl telnet, this host name on 443. Now there is a connection to this domain, basically this IP on port 443? Yes, which means is it able to download that Git packages from that Artifactory? If you see, yes. So this is how you can enable the internet connectivity to the private server. But still that is a private server. Are we able to reach that server from internet? No. But this server is able to talk to the internet via NAT. Clear? What is public subnet? What is private subnet? What is IGW? If your private server needs to talk to the internet, what can be done? Is everyone clear? Guys, this is nothing to do with Terraform. This is nothing to do with Terraform. This VPC, subnets, route tables, all these are AWS concepts. If required, can I create all these things? Can I provision the network, this AWS infrastructure using Terraform? Can I create a VPC, subnets, route tables, IGWs, NAT instances as per your requirement to set up your application servers, database servers? Yes. So how to do that using Terraform? I will show later. But is everyone clear what is VPC, subnets, route tables, IGW, NAT, all these things? Now, sometimes there is some other type of requirements also. Suppose you have another VPC in cloud. Suppose you have one more VPC in cloud. So these servers, the servers in this VPC has to communicate with servers in another VPC, but both are in AWS only. So how you can make private connectivity between these two servers? This server has to communicate with this server privately. That you can do using VPC peering. That you can do using VPC peering. If required, you can create a VPC peering. But one thumb rule you need to remember: if this VPC CIDR, is overlapping with this VPC CIDR, another network CIDR, will you able to create a private connectivity between this one and this one? No, because when it comes to the routes, when it comes to the network route, there is a ambiguity. IP conflict will be there. The router, that route table cannot decide whether it has to go with local route or whether it has to go with the peering route. So VPC CIDR should not overlap if you want to create any kind of a private connectivity. So if required, you can create the VPC peering also. If required, you can create the VPC peering also. I hope everyone knows how to do the VPC peering. Right? We have already demonstrated all these things. Again, I'm just recapping all these concepts. Any questions? Any queries on the networking AWS concept? Now same whatever I have done like this manually, right? Whatever I have done like this manually, creating a VPC, creating a IGW, creating a route tables, creating the subnets, right? I will do in Terraform, guys. I'll do in Terraform. Okay. So I am just explaining AWS so that you can understand Terraform. So I'm just recapping all these concepts. Okay. I'm not focusing more here on AWS, but without explaining this, if I directly go for a Terraform, you can't understand what is what. So here you have various options. Here you have various options. You can understand all these things, right? There is something called customer gateway, virtual private gateway, site to site VPN, client VPN, right? Transit gateways. I am not focusing on all these things because this is not an AWS solution architect course. My focus is on Terraform. I am just explaining some basics on AWS so that you can understand Terraform concepts. Okay. Try to create VPC manually. Try to create VPC manually and try to understand what is VPC. Same thing I will demonstrate when I go for a Terraform, how to create VPC, subnets, route tables, all those things. Thank you guys. That's it for today. I'll continue tomorrow. Sir, what if Bastion also in private, because all the main configuration? Bastion, you need to create Bastion host. You will make sure you are in a public subnet only. Otherwise, you can go with there are various options, guys. I don't want to dig into all those AWS concepts here. Otherwise, you can go with SSM, Session Manager. Otherwise, there is something called Instance Connect. There is something called Instance Connect. If your server supports Instance Connect, you don't need a Bastion host. You don't need a jump box. So even though it's a private server, if that server supports, that AMI supports Instance Connect, you can connect to your EC2 instance without Bastion host also using this Instance Connect option. But this Instance Connect option will not be supported for some AMIs. Otherwise, you can use Session Manager, SSM. So there are various AWS concepts. I don't want to dig into all those things here, but you have various other ways to connect to the private servers. Thank you guys. That's it for today. I'll continue tomorrow with another service. We'll discuss about load balancing. So what is load balancing? How to create a load balancers using GUI? We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.